Good evening and welcome to Locals Supporting Locals, the heartbeat of the Okanagan radio show. I am Kevin Proto, your host, and my lovely co-host Paula, who is the co-founder of Awake Radio.
Hello.
We discuss political challenges, and more importantly, with Locals Supporting Locals, we talk solutions. And before I introduce our very special guest this evening, just a little couple of notes here in regards to what's just taken place here in Canada and actually worldwide here. The March Against Monsanto, which took place in over 50 countries, just under 400 cities worldwide. Here in Penticton, we noticed that there wasn't as much press coverage as there should be, and hence why with Locals Supporting Locals, Awake Radio, and all new media that are out there, it is our only source to real news out there. And also, we just want to update people in regards to what we just started here in Penticton here, Dinner, Movie, and a Chat. We started with a local restaurant that serves up beautiful raw foods and organic foods. And we're going to continue it. The first one was a success, so we're going to continue to do that again. And that'll be happening towards the end of June. And so what I'd like to do is actually introduce our guest this evening. But the topic this evening is on Health Canada, and we're speaking with whistleblower Dr. Shiv Chopra on food safety and food sovereignty. But I'll give you a little bit of his background, and I can't say little because this man has done a lot. He's a world-renowned scientist, is a food and vaccine safety expert. Dr. Chopra has the innate ability to simplify complex scientific and technical matters into ordinary language. Co-vetted as a public speaker, he is featured in many international acclaimed documentaries. As president of the Canadian Council on Food Sovereignty and Health, he consults on food and public health safety and provides educational seminars and webinars to schools, universities, politicians, and community groups. And I was very fortunate to have him actually speak here in Penticton, and they did a Western Canadian tour speaking up on GMOs. So I had the pleasure of meeting Shiv here in person, which was fantastic. He was formerly employed at Health Canada for 35 years. Dr. Chopra was a senior scientific advisor responsible for the regulatory assessment of foods, drugs, and vaccines. He was also involved in the human safety assessment of genetically engineered recombinant bovine growth hormone, or RBGH. He blew the whistle on RBGH, several additional hormones, antibiotics, and various other products endangering the public health. Due to his persistent whistleblowing efforts, RBGH was not approved in Canada and was subsequently banned throughout the European Union. Dr. Chopra holds a degree in veterinary medicine and a master's and PhD in microbiology. He is the recipient of numerous academic and community service awards, including a fellowship of the World Health Organization. His book, Corrupt to the Core, Memoirs of Health Canada Whistleblower, an international bestseller, provides a detailed account on how government endangers food safety and public health. Thank you so much, and welcome to the show. Good evening, Shiv. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay, so on the question of food sovereignty, you are known most famous as a whistleblower. Now, what is a whistleblower?
You know, whistleblower, the word you will not find in dictionary. It sort of got coined during the Vietnam War, and since then it's been used. But to say it simply, whistleblower is one, for example, there's a policeman on the road and somebody is committing a crime, and the policeman blows the whistle or the horn or whatever, siren, and says stop, and then he says, I'm going to charge you. Or there may be an ordinary game, hockey play. Then somebody plays foul, and the referee or umpires blows the whistle and gives whoever has broken the rules a red card, yellow card, green card, whatever. And if in either of those situations somebody else comes in and says, don't do it because so-and-so is related to such and such high official or prime minister or so-and-so, and now if that person is not charged as required in the law, then there are now 3 criminals for breaking the rule instead of just one. So the person gets away. So therefore, that is the whistleblowing. That's where the term is borrowed from. When you work in a government office, it's your job to hold a certain part of the law. For example, in my case, I was a regulator. I was a senior scientific advisor for the approval of various drugs and for humans and animals and also vaccines and so on. So I worked there 35 years, and every now and then they would say that just let go. And I said, I can't let go. The rule is, the law is, that the company that wants to sell anything in Canada, and if that product gets directly or indirectly into the human body, then the company has to do research prescribed under the law, all visible, it's in the book, and the company has to do research and bring to the Minister of Health under the Food and Drugs Act. And if the product is all well and good as claimed, they get a notice of compliance or approval. If it's not, then the company is asked to go back and do more research. If they cannot, if we want to be lenient in the sense that this is a special case, then we put precautions and contraindications. For example, it cannot be given to children or pregnant mothers or old people and things like that. But if the company doesn't bring the data, then they don't get approval. But if now somebody says, don't ask for data, just let it be, well, then now there's a problem, which is what was happening with me, but particularly when this genetically modified bovine growth hormone came to my desk back in 1988. GMOs, other GMOs were not yet on the market. They came on the market, in GMO crops, in the mid-90s. But I'm talking about 1988. And when I looked at the file, somebody else had done the review, and there was no information, no research, no data. And so I asked, and the recommendation was to approve it. I said, well, where is the information? Where's the data? What's the company done? There were 2 companies. There was Monsanto and another company called Eli Lilly, both competing to get the same approval for the same product. So anyway, this went on, and eventually 10 years passed. From 1988, we're now jumping to 1998. And I had written a letter to the company to provide the data. And so ultimately, the department started to say they're going to approve it. I said, well, okay, if you want to approve it, they're saying the U.S. has approved it. Why are you people sitting on this file for 10 years? And I said, I don't know about the U.S. Whatever they have done is none of my concern. I wrote a letter in 1988. Has the company responded? Is there any information? They had no information. At least that's what they said. And the file, this one, by this time was all locked up and nobody was allowed to see. Normally, all the files were open because we all have security clearance. And so ultimately, to cut the long story short, this matter became public knowledge because I now filed grievances that this is what's happening. And this kind of pressure is coming from way up from the Prime Minister's office or Privy Council and so on. And so if they want to approve it, it's up to them, but I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to sign off until I see my letter answered and until I see the data. Eventually, the files were opened, and then we discovered, in fact, Monsanto had done the study. It was sitting under our noses, all locked up. And when we looked at it, then an investigation was done by 4 scientists designated by the department. And then we discovered that everything that I suspected could happen had happened. And so that resulted in a big scandal. It went to the Senate, and the Senate Committee on Agriculture hauled me before the Senate Committee and asked to describe what happened. So, and after I described what happened with BGH, some of the senators said, "Hey, is that the only drug or are there others?" I said, "Sir, since you ask, I listed 10 or 12 other drugs, antibiotics, hormones, all kinds of things that were going on." So it became a huge scandal. And ultimately, the BGH was not approved in Canada. But based on what happened in Canada, it was actually banned throughout the European Union. There's a difference between not approving and banning. Banning means, not approving means that Canadian farmers could not obtain it and use it in Canada, or veterinarians could not administer it to Canadian cows. But banning meant, and then next door, if the US had already cleared it, that means BGH could not come into Canada, could not be used in Canada in cows, but BGH-induced milk from the US and products, cheese, butter, that continues to come into Canada to this day. So it didn't really have the effect that it was supposed to have. But on the other hand, European Union banned it, so they would not allow American cheeses to go there. You know, they have to show that it's BGH free. So that's what happened. That's how I became a whistleblower. And after years later, you know, that was in 1999, and then of course they put a gag order on me. I took them to court. The court ruled in my favor, and they said it was my duty to blow the whistle because that's my job. If the department doesn't do anything and the department bosses have been informed, and the court, federal court, quoting the Supreme Court, ruled in my favor. Nevertheless, that was in 2000 now. And then from there on, they dismantled the previous staff and, you know, senior people, brought in new people, and now the decision was made to, one way or the other, just fire me. It took them several years after that. So in 2004, I was fired.
That's incredible. You know, it reminds me of, it was the same thing. It was Fox News started up, this was at the beginning when Fox, I think, almost still had a little bit of credibility there, but they started their special reports, and it was an investigation series that they had started, and it was with Monsanto and the cancer in milk. And the same thing with those reporters, they started to discover that Monsanto, the contamination with the milk with Monsanto, and they tried to also bring it forward as well. And they landed up either they were going to sue Fox or they had to terminate the show. And so they terminated the show and fired the reporters for doing exactly the same thing as what you're talking about here. So, so according to Health Canada and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency here, the CFIA, our food is supposed to be the safest in the world. Now, would you say that it is the most toxic, and if so, how so?
Well, you know, that's the whole problem. Health Canada, you know, since then I published a book. It's called Corrupt to the Core, Memoirs of a Health Canada Whistleblower. In there, I provide all the evidence, what happened. I know about Fox News people, husband and wife team, both were fired, went to court and they lost their jobs. And so what began to happen, whoever questioned Monsanto and these companies would lose their jobs. Media people would lose their jobs, as you saw that. Scientists would lose their jobs. It happened in the U.S., it happened in Britain, and wherever they were, if they suspected anybody is going to go against them, they were fired. What actually is most interesting, I described that in the book, that in 1990, a Monsanto executive came to a secret meeting in Canada, some group of people, industries, and gave a talk, which is published report. I have it. I've quoted in my book, where it's basically Monsanto manifesto, how they're going to take over the world. The White House, the White Hall, the French Parliament, the Japanese Parliament, and so on, and eventually the whole world. In other words, nobody can speak. And they will make the appointments. This is literally what was happening at the time of BGH. There, Michael Taylor, and there was Margaret Miller. These were Monsanto employees. They were inside, they were high officials of the US FDA approving these things. So in effect, what Monsanto said in 1990 has actually happened. What they had said, 8 or 9 or 10 companies will get together and we will rule the world, and whatever we say will go, and this is called so-called intellectual property rights. In other words, whatever cockamamie ideas or products they have to sell, they will call it intellectual property. As far as I'm concerned, these are not intellectual property, this is intellectual parasites. They do nothing. They come up with these GMOs and hormones and all kinds of things. So therefore, our food now has become the most toxic on earth. Let me explain. In our food, there are 5 products illegally approved by the US FDA and Health Canada. And those products are hormones, not the BGH, but other hormones, sex hormones being injected into beef and other hormones being given to pigs and so forth for various reasons, basically to make the factory farming more efficient, put on more weight. So there are hormones, antibiotics, slaughterhouse waste. Whatever is picked up after collecting meat in slaughterhouses is then ground up and converted into products, some going directly into human food, like jelly, soft jelly, gelatin is made from animal tissues, then whatever is left over is fed back to food-producing animals. Cows get it, pigs get it, chickens get it. So in that system, there's blood is turned into blood meal, bones are turned into bone meal, and then whatever else is picked up, animals dying on the road in accidents are picked up, mink from mink factories after the skin is removed, and so all this junk is picked up, is ground up and turned into products. Most of that is going into animal feed. We know what happened with that. In Britain they were doing that and they got mad cow disease. And people who ate beef from those cows then got CJD, and then people died from it. And so as a result, the European Union has banned all those 3 products, meaning no hormones are allowed injected into beef and so on. And no antibiotics are on a mass scale allowed in Europe. No slaughterhouse waste is fed back. And what they do in Europe with that waste, they actually incinerate it. Here, we are feeding it back to animals and people. And then come the whole bunch of pesticides and herbicides. Almost more than 6,000 herbicides and pesticides are approved in Canada under different names and categories and so on. Some are called fungicides, some are called weedicides, just different names. But side means to kill. So whether you call it a pesticide or herbicide, it has the same effect. And there is no such thing as a safe pesticide or herbicide. We know about 2,4-D, we know about Agent Orange, we know about DDT from long time ago. Many of these products, pesticides, are the wartime, Second World wartime inventions which they were trying to use as weapons of mass destruction in the Second World War. Nazis had it, people on the opposite side had it, they're still there. And now those same things have been turned into various of these pesticides and herbicides. And now that means there are now 4. So European Union has not yet banned all pesticides, but they are on the way to remove many pesticides. They have already removed neonicotinoids, for example, which are killing off bees. A number of other pesticides are gone from Europe. If they have their way, they'll probably all be gone. Then come the last thing. The 5th product is genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified organisms can be seeds, fruits, vegetables, animals like fish. And so now they're even talking about genetically modified pigs and cows and all kinds of bizarre things are happening and on the way to happen. So when you look at these 5 materials going into our food production, the companies would say, and Health Canada would say, oh, this is safe, nobody's dying. Actually, that's not true. Right now, 36 million Americans and 11 million Canadians every year get foodborne disease and get hospitalized and thousands die. This is not directly from, this is only foodborne infections. But what I'm talking about, chronic disease. Chronic disease has been increasing. Everybody reads about it, that there's heart disease, cancer, obesity, diabetes, autism, Parkinson's disease. Where are these diseases coming from when they're increasing in such huge numbers? So people, in this case, young people, very young people, may live as long as we have lived, but they will be sick from the beginning to the end of their life. So we're talking about chronic disease. That's what I mean by saying that our food, Canadian food, has become the most toxic on earth. It's not happening the same way in Europe. It's not even happening in the third world. We're supposed to be one of the most advanced countries. We're supposed to be one of the richest countries. We're supposed to be have the healthiest food. We don't need to do these things for our people. On top of it, as a result of what's happening, we've lost our agriculture. Within 5 years, we'll have no food production in Canada if we continue. Already in Canada, the agriculture population, people growing food, used to be, farmers, used to be about 25% of the population 50 years ago. Now it's less than 1.5%, and the average age of a Canadian farmer is over 60 years of age. And the younger people are not getting into it. So therefore, if this continues, this trend, and it's inevitable, already, I mean, these people, companies and governments are lying to us that we're doing this to feed the hungry world. The hungry world is sending for us food. Now we are already importing it from Mexico, India. We can't compete against them. So if this continues, we will have no food production here. We will be depending on what's brought by companies like Walmart or Costco and Loblaws and people like that, sourced from overseas and brought to us here. And then meanwhile, that means we're losing our health and we're getting sick, and then we're going to have to be treated with drugs. We're going to go bankrupt. The richest people are becoming the sickest people. And if you read The Economist, even this week, the healthcare fraud that's going on is turning into hundreds of billions of dollars. U.S. will go bankrupt trying to support the healthcare system. But why are we making people sick? And it's coming much, even the climate change, carbon footprint, it's all food related. We produce excess amount of meat. We produce excess amount of, we can't produce anything else. Then we create corn, we create soybean to feed the animals, to excessive amount of meat. And then to make things even worse, then there's GMO corn to make ethanol to drive cars. This to me is just madness.
Well, I know. Well, it's the same thing. Basically, we saw this happen in Canada, where they've been basically with the U.S. government, the Federal Drug Administration, the corruption that's been going on there with former board members of Monsanto going from there into the FDA, and now that's essentially what's happened in Canada here as well, and they've taken over Health Canada. And at the end of the day, Health Canada is a for-profit corporation, and they are not for the health and safety of we the people here of Canada here. And it's funny that you say that too.
Haven't it happened to me? We're talking about the U.S. FDA. Just before I was fired, a Monsanto vice president was brought into Health Canada, sitting as a special advisor to the Minister of Health, Alan Rock.
So you know firsthand.
Yeah, he was taking briefings on my files. And one particular file didn't even belong to Monsanto, it belonged to Bayer. And it was over an antibiotic called Baytril. It was over that drug that I was fired, because I wouldn't approve it. It was an antibiotic. I said, if you approve it, this is going to cause superbugs, it'll kill people, and no, it should not be done. And I was ordered to do it. I said, I'm not going to do it. Now there's a 4-inch thick report that I wrote, actually demanded by the department. What are the roadblocks to approving this drug called Baytril? And what they meant was that, how long will you take? Give us a timetable. And I said, I interpreted the other way. I said, roadblocks mean there are impediments why it cannot be approved. When I wrote that report, and it was ordered by the Deputy Minister David Dodge, nobody wanted to look at that report. Now it's sitting in the courts, nobody wants to look at that report. It's sitting with the Integrity Commission, they're saying, no, we're not going to look at it. Now imagine, the courts have ruled, federal court ruling, that the Minister of Health has discretion over how much science is required to pass a product. I said, over a federal law, minister has discretion, and the law is attached to the criminal code. Who can have discretion over an existing law to arrest people or not arrest people, or charge people or not charge people? Who is the minister? Not even the Queen has that discretion. I thought they got rid of it a long time ago after Charles I was beheaded. But this is how it's happening right now in Canada. And there's Harper government created a commission called the Integrity Commission. I have a complaint sitting there, and they said, we are not going to investigate it. And the judge ruled that they have the discretion to investigate or not investigate.
Holy cow.
Just imagine where we have reached. This is no democracy, and we talk about other people not being democratic, China and Russia and other people. This is happening in Canada.
Well, I know, and it showed too with the worldwide march against Monsanto. I mean, never has this taken place. Such a demonstration. Where it's in over 50 countries, 400 or just under 400 cities, and meanwhile, it's almost like a media blackout. But meanwhile, you can find out all kinds of stuff going on in Ukraine, and like you're saying here, all these uprisings happening, and democracy is not happening here. And meanwhile, it's happening right in front of our faces here. And again, that's what's so important about the new media, which was termed alternative media, but I think it's the only media we got today to get properly informed. I mean, it's truly commendable. I mean, I know for you, it's you doing your job, and it's the integral thing to do. And for most of us, we would all do that. I mean, did they ever? I mean, you must have received some sort of threats or something. I mean, to stand up like you did.
No, my threat to me was, the impending threat always was that I would be fired. Originally, my plan was that I was going to take early retirement at 60. When I moved over to the Bureau of Veterinary Dogs, I was 54 years of age. Around there, and I said, okay, I'm going to take I'm tired of all this nonsense. I'll take early retirement and get out. And once I had started to deal with BGH, I described all that in my book, then I said, okay, now I'm not going to leave until I get fired. I took this on as a challenge. Systematically, following the rules, never break the law, never hand out things to people or anything like that. Just follow the rules.
Thank you so much for your honesty and integrity, and it saves lives, and it will continue to do so.
Well, you see, Paula, what we need now, it's not me. It's not what's happening out there. Kevin was saying it's happening all over the world. In Egypt, people are now going out, this Occupy movement or March Against Monsanto. Personally, I'm not in favor of any of those. There is no place for violence. There is no place for breaking the law. I would never do that. I even refuse to march against Monsanto. My fight is not with Monsanto or any other company or anybody. It is with my own government, the people that we elect, that we trust. This is our fundamental system. It's in our Constitution. It's our God-given right to eat and feed our families that nature makes. It's also a constitutional right under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to uphold the law. And we are sovereign of our own bodies. We live in a sovereign country, independent, democratic. So therefore, instead of marching against Monsanto or writing petitions to the Minister of Health or asking for labeling, to me this is all a unnecessary exercise. It's not going to achieve anything. People asking for labeling in the U.S. have spent millions of dollars, and the companies come back and spend 4 times the money, and the labeling doesn't happen because the politicians are all bought. So our governments are like abusive parents. They are abusing us, and these people are sick people. If you go and complain to the abuser or say not to do it, that he enjoys it even more because they feel the power. So it's pointless.
Exactly. Very
Pointless.
analogy.
I'm saying you can't force me to eat that I don't want to eat. You cannot force me to take a vaccine I don't want to take. You are not going to force me to take feed such and such food to my children. I will not do so. If I have to grow my own, I should grow my own. If I want to buy organic food, I will not buy it if it comes from California or China. I would only buy it if it's locally grown, that I can trust. If I don't grow myself, I have to know the farmer, I have to know the farm, I have to know the local people. And this is the interim solution. But there has to be a bigger solution. That is what my colleagues and I are now working on. What is the system? How do we correct it? Because if there's a problem of this immense nature, there must be a solution. And the solution must be simple, not beating up on government or marching against Monsanto or litigating. Those are expensive and dangerous exercises. I mean, we know what happened in Egypt or Syria or the UK. When you start doing those things, a lot of people get hurt. That's not the solution. So there has to be a peaceful, simple solution. And that has to come from within ourselves. So,
well, that's exactly what the reasons for starting up locals, supporting locals. The solution is, to support your local ethical organic farmers. Go out there, get to know them, keep your money local, and you got to reconnect in your community. And hence, like what we started it with the dinner movie in the chat, but. And talk about what the problems are, but then you got to talk about the solutions, and you got to take back your local government. Start at the bottom from there, and then you got to start. Then you can start to move up, because, like you said, it's way too far gone. And it's the same thing when I started to put together the calendar. I didn't know one farmer in my Okanagan. And you had the pleasure of coming out here, Shiv, and experiencing it. But I made it a point. It was my due diligence. If I wanted real food, I got to go out there and find it. And that's what people need to do. They rely too much on the system to protect and support them. And now that it's gone so far, people are sitting there waiting for the second coming, and they're looking up, and they don't realize that the second coming is actually you. Empower yourself again. And that's, and again, thank you so much for the work that you do and the information that you're sharing here. But continue, Shiv. I had to jump in there.
Yeah, well. The solution, because wherever I go, as I came out on the tour in BC and Alberta, and I knew when I was invited to join the tour, I said, yeah, I'm prepared to join, provided people agree to do something themselves. Otherwise, I'm tired of making speeches. I've done it all over the world for the last 20 years. Gone to Australia, New Zealand, across India and the United States. And, I've gone all over the world. But two things happen to me. Wherever I go, because many of these people who invite me are, anti-GMO NGOs. So their focus is only GMOs. And so they all say, you have to talk about GMOs. And I tell them, why not the others which are actually killing people right now? And so that's one thing. Once I've spoken about the 5 pillars of food safety that I've just described, that those 5 toxic products have to get out of food becomes organic and healthy.
Sorry, Shiv. I don't mean to cut you off here, but we just have to go to a quick break here. There's just a little bit of a sound problem here, so we're just going to do a quick break.
Okay.
You're listening to Awake Radio. Straight talk for the awake and aware.
Thank you, and welcome back to Local Sporting Local's Heartbeat of the Okanagan radio show here. We apologize for our little bit of sound problems there, but we're going to continue our conversation here with Dr. Shiv Chopra here. And we were discussing just before going to commercial there, how do we take charge? Like, basically, what do we got to do here, Shiv, to take things back?
Two things. One is your personal responsibility. Like every living being spends time finding food, and they always eat fresh food, which they're accustomed to. Humans are the only people, only animals that don't want to do anything. They want the food brought to them. They've even forgotten where food comes from, and they're prepared to eat stale food, bad food, contaminated food, because they don't know. No animal eats a dead animal. They kill first, fresh, and so on. That's one thing we have to learn. In other words, grow your food or remain very close to where fresh food is grown. That becomes local, and then you eat that. The second thing that we have to do as a society is we got to change our education system. You see, in our schools, by law, all children have to go to school from age 4 or 5 to age 16 or 18. And that's the law. If you don't send your child to school, your child can be taken away, or you can be put in jail, or whatever is charged. Now, what do they teach them in school? They put there, and the children are asked to memorize things, and if they don't memorize, they don't conform, they're called stupid. A few of them that conform, they go to university and so on. I think the time has come to revert that process in a different way. If the education, all education, should be given around growing food in schools. And the children should be taught from age 4 to 18 with all the technology, all the chemistry, all the engineering, building greenhouses, whatever is needed, solar panels, whatever. In their school, in the school playgrounds, they should be part of their laboratories. That means all that food they will grow themselves, they will also consume. They should also be taught to cook within their own school. This should be all part of the curriculum. So now, not only are you growing food, you're also enjoying and cooking and conversing and so on. So this way, there will be so much food that nobody will ever starve. Nobody will need to import. Food will be taken out of the economic equation. People will be healthy. It'll save us billions of dollars in healthcare. Health will improve. So this is, in order to get there, this is where you have to take a collective responsibility, go to your school boards, go to your municipalities, and the municipalities should be urged to declare their own areas purely organic. We're not going to use those 5 things. Don't go by the Health Canada or CFIA definition of organic. No. I'm telling you that if you remove those 5, automatically all food becomes organic. And so, automatically. So why do we need to certify it? For certification, they make it more expensive, they make it more difficult, and all those things that happen. So this way, I know what I want to eat, and so I'm growing so much food in my own place, and people are cutting up their front lawns to grow food. Why do we need to grow grass? If you want grass, put a carpet there. You won't have to cut it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they got artificial grass now too.
Yeah,
so.
Sure. That's why artificial grass was created.
That's how lazy it is. They've even got even lazier. You know, they not only did they put it into grass so they don't have to grow their own food, but now they even want it artificial so they don't even have to cut it. It's truly alarming.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so easy to grow food. You can grow it in buckets. You can grow it in raised gardens. You can grow food in parking lots. And this is what some of the groups are now doing in Britain, Australia, and many places. I mean, some of my colleagues and I have created an organization called Canadian Council on Food Sovereignty and Health. We have a website. You can reach there. And it's called foodsovereigntycanada.com. They can go there. They can go to my website, Shiv Chopra, oneword.com. So there's a lot of these things described in there. You can people can call me. They can call our organization and have discussions. If you have money, you can bring us into it. Otherwise, we can do webinars. We can be brought into schools. We can be brought into communities. We're having this radio program costing zero money.
Yeah.
So technology is available now. It's not expensive. We don't need to set up big organizations and go on speaking tours and so on. It's all available.
Yeah. Well, I know because the powers that be, like Monsanto, and I mean, it's like you said, it's they discussed and put together these 10 companies, and they basically want to rule the world, like you were saying much earlier in the show there, and they've achieved that. And so there's a big shift going on where people are actually starting to look, see, and care and want to make a difference. But at the same token, as we all know how things usually work, they create the problem, they wait for the reaction, and then they create the solution. So something that a lot of people, and it's really coming out, a lot of awareness on this, is the UN Agenda 21, right? Which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know when with speaking to you before the show, a lot of people are concerned because there's a lot of green groups that are out there, or sustainable groups that are actually part of the Agenda 21, which goes under the terms like transition towns or ICLE, known as ICLE. There's so many different names, but they all tie right back into the UN. So this is nice that with the organization that you're speaking of, how it's not tied to the UN agenda. And so people need to do their research, and we're going to be doing a show coming up on UN Agenda 21, because it's hard to just touch on that subject and just leave it alone. It needs a good explanation because, again, this is what they've done to us. And so now people all of a sudden start to wake up. They listen to people like yourself talking about the food and the solutions, and then all of a sudden here's a group going on over here, coincidentally Transition Town or with ICLE, and they're talking about all this sustainability and the World Sustainable Business Incorporation, if I'm not mistaken, is the title here. I should have pulled it up before saying it, but it's the World Business Solution, and that's all tied to, it's all with the UN. And if you go to their website and you don't know who their sponsors are or who the partners are to it until you click all the way, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you hit the About button, and what pops up is who the partners are. Coincidentally, it's Monsanto, Dole, DuPont, Surgente, all these companies in the food, and it goes all right through to the oil companies and everything else that we're fighting for. And people are, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, UN 2 has been taken over, like the other governments, UN 2. And that UN was squeezed back from in Reagan days, when America started to, they said, we're not going to pay our dues and so on. They starved the UN. And then they said, okay, we'll release the funds provided you do such and such. So the same thing has been done to the universities. Same thing has been done to the media. Same thing has been done to whoever is the opposition. So much so, the companies are now worried about Facebook and alternative media, so they have employed their own people. You saw, in fact, when I was touring, there was some shill that got on behind us, and one guy was traveling, you know, for hundreds of miles and kept following me in various places. And ultimately, I was speaking at UBC. He even approached the UBC chairman not to invite me. I'm a misguided individual. He wrote on a piece of paper and distributing it. So when he stood up for the third time after several weeks, so I asked him, I said, are you a scientist? He said, oh, I have a degree. I said, I didn't ask you whether you have a degree. Are you a relevant scientist? Have you done any research, or are you just quoting other people? Or do you have a script? And or do you have a day job? Because you look like a young man to me. So how come you're traveling around all the time? Then afterwards, I told him, I said, you're spreading all this mischief, all this information on a piece of paper. I could take action. This is libel and slander. And I never saw him again. So, so they hire some of these people, and then they give them a script, but they're not informed, educated people. They stand up and they pay the newspapers to put an op-ed and a page or article in the newspapers. They think they're going to fool the public, and people are getting fed up. A lot of people don't read newspapers now anyway.
No.
Because it's all gone electronic. I don't buy any newspapers. I haven't bought.
For me, I just don't want to support most of the newspapers because they're not writing anything credible.
Yep.
Well, it's funny, and again, this is where I first met you too. And speaking of sustainability, UN Agenda 21, but when we attended that GMO debate that took place, that was hosted by the Fresh Outlook Foundation.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah, I know. I remember. I was there. I mean, this guy just gets up and, that Apple thing is a manipulation. It's a clever manipulation, just to say that the apple won't brown after it's cut, and we're not putting any pesticide. Then what is your purpose? The purpose is to patent or have create a precedent to patent an apple. And if it's approved, before you know, all apples will be owned by Monsanto.
yes, they make it seem as if it's being done by Neil Carter with Okanagan Specialty Fruits, and
Yep.
but that's not the case, And so, but I just wanted to point one thing out so that people understand here, because if you remember correctly, there, right at the beginning, when Joanne DeFries, the CEO or founder of Fresh Outlook Foundation, she stated, she goes, people automatically assume because we are a sustainable organization or a sustainable group and we promote sustainability, that we automatically don't support GMOs or we're against GMOs. And she says that is the furthest from the truth. Yep. And as a registered charity, they can neither advocate for or against GMOs. And not enough people really picked up on that, because often a lot of people ask me, Kev, you're so green, with your calendar and the whole supporting local and organic. Why don't you work with these sustainable groups? And I'm like, well, because they're part of an agenda that, and I've tried to share the information. I don't think they're bad people. I just think they refuse to want to take a look at what they're really a part of, and at the end of the day, and I often tell people, because, we try to host meetings, dinner, movie, and a chat, we have potluck barbecues, and stuff like that. And we'll even have a fire pit and have the talking stick go around, and we talk about the solutions here. But, the most important thing when you come into any of these events is check your hat, check your stethoscope, check your badge, check your coat, check whatever it is at the door. More importantly, check your ego at the door. And so we take things, from some of these books that are being put out by Transition Towns, Ways, and stuff like that. Take the good out of what's in there, because it was initially started by good people. Sadly, it's been corporatized, or I like to say fascism there, but it's been corporatized. So take the good out of it, and then take the rest of the book, and throw it in the fire. It makes for great kindling. I know we're probably coming up pretty close to wrapping up here, Paula.
Sorry, I went to talk without unmuting. Yes, we're coming up, and but you guys, you know what? Take as long as you need, and
Okay,
Wrap it
perfect.
up when you guys feel like it. It's up to you. Everybody is hanging on your every word, and me too, if I can find my mic button. But I'm enjoying it. If Dr. Chopra doesn't mind to stay and talk a while longer, this is very good.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. And normally Paula would participate more, and I don't think I said this at the beginning, but Paula has a throat infection, and until 2 days ago, couldn't even talk. And so her voice is just starting to come back now, because otherwise she normally participates a lot more there. But yeah, and so
Well, I'm from Ireland. That's the question I had. Your address shows Ireland.
Oh, I'm in Florida.
I know, but this on your reference to this, it showed Ireland. I said, oh, she's in Canada. Maybe she's from Ireland.
Actually, my partner, Steve Allen, he's another founder of Awake Radio. He's in Ireland. I'm going to visit him soon.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe what we could do is, because in speaking with, just for our guests that are listening out there, in speaking with Dr. Chopra here, through a lot of our talks here, we're on the same page. We're not just in the same book. We're on the same page with a lot of what you're working with the Food Council, and with supporting locals and the radio show here. So we're going to have Shiv come back on a number of occasions here to update everyone. And so what we want to do is actually have you come back, and we can spend more time and bring you on to give more detail, so that this way, you got to touch on to what you guys have started there with the organization that you started there. But why don't we bring you on again, and then we'll go more in depth into it, and if that works for you, Shiv.
I think that'll be good. We can do it on Skype, etc. But in time, this will require some more work. Once you prepare people, I can physically come out there, and then we expand this whole idea, plan it out, a strategy. It should now become. There should be a workshop. There should be a way of carrying it forward, so enable every local group or populations, so that they will begin to work with a systematic system. That is what's now needed. Because
you let me know when you want to come out here. I got a perfect farm for you to stay at, completely organic, and you'll be very happy. And that's where we can start it right from there.
Well, that'll be great. But more than just staying, we need now people who will say, okay, I understand now, I'll work on this project or that project, and so forth. Going to schools, going to municipalities, whatever. So there should be now a program set out that people can pick up individually and collectively and take forward. It needs that kind of sit-down strategy meetings now, because it's not going to happen by itself.
No, and that's the thing that I try to promote too. With my background, I did 7 years of door-to-door sales marketing. Was taught the true art of selling, and realized that everything that you learn, this company taught, it was actually everything in a self-help book. That's how and so that's how I was able to put together the whole concept of locals supporting locals and create the calendar. And the calendar was created to help raise awareness, but also to help fund an organization, because most groups that are out there are broke, and they got to fundraise all the time. So I tried to create it that way for people. But at the same token, in saying that, that's my skills. I saw the problem, and I'm like, okay, we got to support locally. How do we do that? And so I took my skills, You know,
Yeah.
just like your skills is as a scientist, you know, and
Well,
everyone's got them, and know
very-
your role. Know your role and apply it, you know,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, when you do, it's like when you find a job you love, you'll never work another day in your life.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. No, it's a good instrument. It's a talking point. You're taking the calendar to somebody, or it's an instrument. The same way, you know, when I reached Lethbridge, an artist that I'd never met in my life came. She says, "I have a gift for you," and she handed me this Christmas gift, which was a framed cartoon of me, and with the 5 pillars of food safety. Now it's gone on our Facebook. It's gone. We printed T-shirts with it. You know, the message is all in that cartoon. You know, so it becomes an instrument. People say, what is it? And then discussion begins. Same thing you're doing with your calendar.
Well, that's it. So, I mean, in order to put it together, what it does, and this is why, I like to see people I formed the Okanagan chapter of Locals Supporting Locals, and we're putting together the template so people can implement these where they are. Because people that are on the Canadian Council of Food Sovereignty, for example, are people that are aware. What this calendar does is, because it's not abrasive, it's not radical or anything, it's festivals and events, real living with real food. But then when you actually read the content, which I'm very proud to say, you know, that Dr. Shiv Chopra wrote in there, you know, it actually tells you the corruption of Health Canada. It tells you what foods have been genetically modified. It gives you all the awareness, all the websites to go to their websites and research more. And so, but the solution is also in there too. What is it? Keep your money local to start with. Stop corporatization. Then, as well, who your farmers are, what they grow, and how to find them. So it's a very important tool. And then you bring them in, and that's why, like, I would be very proud. And it'd be my pleasure to actually include, because we've started the 3rd annual calendar for the South Okanagan, and our goal is to get the central one going as well for this year, is to include the council, the Canadian Council on Food Sovereignty and Health. That would be my absolute pleasure. But I do,
you know, very good to refer in there. We have a brochure with things like that. So if some of that is shown, this is what a council is, so people know where to go for more information or interact with people. That's mutual support for the same cause.
Absolutely. And it's like you said earlier, you know, I took a lot of pride in leading the march against Monsanto. And there was during the march in my talking, I talked a lot about what local supporting locals is and the importance of it, because at the end of the day, after people listen to, you know, Alex Adamanenko spoke on GMOs, you hear all this fearful stuff, and then people go home. And it's like, well, you haven't talked, like, you got to continue this conversation. You need to be talking solutions here. People don't know where to go. And that's, again, where I created this, and now you create the venues where you meet. But and so people need to start these chapters where they are, and by all means, they can contact Locals Supporting Locals through our website, which is and I got to wrap this up with you, Shiv, Dr. Chopra, because I do apologize, but we do have this is a live show, and I have, there's a Jeffrey Smith is actually in town here, one of the leading experts on GMOs, and so, yeah.
Say hello to him from me.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely will. So I just want to tell people that are listening to the show, you can visit our website, localsupportinglocals.ca, and as well for the radio shows, for our archives, it's localsradio.com. So all these shows that are live are also put into the archives so that everybody can go listen to the shows. And by all means, share these shows with people. You know, we try to make sure that we bring on credited people such as Dr. Shiv Chopra here, because I mean, you listen to the accreditations and the work that this man did, and the integrity, and the fact that we're still talking to him with such a nasty organization, or I don't even know what to call them, but the Monsanto, and you're still here. It shows, like so again, anybody else that would like to follow up, it's can you tell everyone your website again?
Yes, my website is shivchopra.com, Shiv Chopra, one word, SHIVCHOPRA.com, and the council is foodsovereigntycanada.com, all one word, foodsovereigntycanada.com.
Okay, perfect. And again, you can actually find supporting locals on Facebook. And you can also find the Canadian Council on Food Sovereignty on Facebook as well. So by all means, join the group of locals supporting locals. And we share, if there's other groups out there that are on the same page as us, we love to work with you, and we share the information. We don't take credit for anybody else's work. So by all means, connect with us, and together we can do it. Locals supporting locals is not about me. It's not about you. It's about we. Thank you very much, and have a great night.